So now you have the company, their website, a potential decision maker. You can try to guess their email. Obviously, best case is if you can get their actual physical address, and then next best case is their phone number, and then email is the third option. Why? Because these are in order of the most permanence to the least. If someone has an address, they're very unlikely to change that physical address. That's why actually mail campaigns are actually still quite effective. And then phone would be second, but again, phone, it depends. Some people don't, in certain industries or certain regions, get a lot of spam phone calls, and they may not respond very well to unknown numbers. But at the end of the day, you want to try to directly control the delivery of your messaging. And you can't do that when you're marketing or advertising, right? So, depending on who you're reaching out to, it may or may not be a good idea to do things like cold calling or cold email. I found that in some cases, some regions, cold calling is actually quite effective. For example, if you are targeting remote communities and they have area codes that are actually not heavily spammed by those spam calling robots, then they don't get a lot of those promotional calls and they actually respond quite well to phone calls. Maybe because they also have poor or less reliable internet access because they're living remotely. And if they have cell coverage, they usually prefer to do business through the phone. Or again, that may be too personal for some people, or maybe if you're targeting millennials, maybe they don't prefer to communicate through a phone and they prefer email or text instead. So your goal is to figure out how they want to receive communication best and try to get the contact info. But let's talk about email because email is the easiest. So for email, I'll post a list of different potential tools that you can use, but one of them is called Hunter, hunter.io. And what you do is you give it the website for a company, and it will go on the web and scrape and try and find anywhere that domain is associated with an email. So here you can see I've put in internet restaurant, and it shows me info@internetrestaurant.com. Typically, if you're going after very small companies or individual owners, you get this kind of info or help at general inbox. They don't have a personal inbox. But if you're going for a larger organization where there's multiple employees, usually it's easier to find an individual's email address. So in this case here, I've put in Cactus Club Cafe. You can see the general format is first name, last name at domain name. So even if the decision maker is not shown here, I can actually readily guess the right email format. So for example, if I'm trying to reach out to, let's say, Alice Chang, I might say alicechang@cactusclubcafe.com. So what you can do here as well is you can see the source. Where is their email found? Maybe it's on the About Us page. Maybe it's on a press release. Maybe it's in a forum that they posted. Who knows? But it gives you a pretty good idea of what the email format is. In some cases, for very large organizations, this is not as easy to do. And again, you have to work with what you have. And if it's not guessable, you can't really focus on them. So for a larger organization, they may have multiple email formats. Maybe some contacts have a first name dot last name. Some contacts may have just the first name. Some contacts may have first name, last name. Beyond an email, you may even be interested in finding a more direct point of contact with your prospect, especially so if they are a valuable VIP client or if it's someone that you really want to get a hold of, not just as a sales prospect, but maybe you want to make someone your mentor, or if you're looking for a good investor. If someone is really worth the investment, you may want to go a step further. So what does that look like? For example, you could go on LinkedIn and you can look for mutual connections, see if there's a way to find a warm introduction. Beyond a warm introduction, you might also look into not only that, but also trying to understand where does that person engage? How can you be in the places where that person is being? Are they vocal about specific topics? Do they post in certain forums? Do they engage on certain hashtags? Do they attend specific events? If so, how can you find those ways to get on their radar and be noticed where they are active? A true story, not sales specific, but a good friend of mine, when he was trying to look for a mentor, he took this approach. So he was trying to make a specific business leader his mentor, and he actually eventually got to know all of the mentees of that leader and even the wife of that person before he was formally introduced in person. And when he was introduced, what the person said actually affirmed his approach. He said, "Oh, I've heard so much about you. Even my wife has mentioned you, right?" So the idea here is this type of approach. Yes, it will take a bit longer. Like for the buddy of mine, it took him about 3 months before he got to the stage where he could get that nice warm intro. But at the end of the day, if it is worth building a good relationship, then you may want to invest some time into it. It's not just about the transaction, it's really about the relationship. So do you care enough about this person to really get to know them on a deeper level?